You're listening to What's New Today, a kids and family podcast where we talk about current events shaping our world. This is Sangeetha, the host of this show, and in every episode, I'm joined by children. They discuss new stories with me. In this episode, we're doing something slightly different. We review a book, The Immortals of Meluha, written by Amish Tripathi. This is the first of a 3-book series and is based on Lord Shiva. Earlier this month, a group of kids signed up to read this book along with me, and we got together at the end of the month to discuss what we felt about the stories, the characters, the author's writing style, and the opinions of some of the critics. The 4 kids who joined me to read and review Immortals of Meluha are...
Hi, I'm Agastya. I'm 12 years old and I study in 7th grade in Nahal International School. And I live in Mumbai, Maharashtra.
Hi, I'm Prakriti Badlani and I am in 5th grade. I'm 11 years old and I live in Mumbai, Maharashtra. My hobby is reading books.
Hi, I'm Shambhavi. I study in 10th, 11th grade and I live in Delhi.
Hello, my name is Smyan. I live in California. I like reading books.
Welcome all of you. It's wonderful to see 2 5th graders, 1 6th grader and an 11th grader to talk about a book based on Hindu mythology. So let's kickstart our book review with how many stars would you give this book?
I'd give it 5 stars because I think the ending when Lord Shiva went to Swadeep and he found the beggar and the beggar giving him food, I think that was pretty emotional.
I give it a 4-star rating because the story moves a little too slowly, but other than that, it is very engaging.
Okay, so I give it 4.5 stars. The scene where Brahaspati died, I was a bit sad. And that's the only reason the 0.5 stars got cut. Otherwise, the book is very engaging and yeah, it's good.
I'll give it a complete 5 out of 5 stars because it is extremely realistic. I like the thoughts put into it. The science of the Surya Vanshis, the Chandra Vanshis, and the contrast between them as a civilization. I liked it, and that's why I give it a complete 5 out of 5 stars. And well, it's very elaborate and interesting how the way he has structured it.
Wow, so it does look like the book is a reasonably good hit with all 4 of you who've joined me today in this book review podcast. I'd like to read aloud something that the author Amish Tripathi said in one of his interviews. So he says that mythology is something that's deeply ingrained in our lives, and I was sure that the books would sell reasonably okay because people do love to hear these stories again and again. But I was quite taken aback by the extent of success. So the book sold way more than what Amish Tripathi thought it would sell. And he was even more surprised by the fact that the book was a very big hit amongst people in the 14 to 18 years category. So my question to the 4 of you, because you all are young readers and you may be able to empathize better with readers of that category, the 14 to 18-year-old category, than I can. So what do you think was the reason behind the book being such a big success among the 14 to 18-year-old, not just amongst the adults?
In a world where we rely so much on logic and our parents usually teach us about the religion they are mainly focusing on, I think young people will feel nice to get a new point of view, a new perspective. So there's more to explore than just one aspect or one belief of something, and that's why I think it may have been popular. Again, we don't want to just incline to someone's thoughts, and we want and the thing about the book is that it has so much reasoning and put into it that you won't just get you won't just get mythology as it is. You'll get reasoning with that.
Yeah, so at first I thought like it would be very boring. Because my father used to love this book and I didn't really want to read it. But when I saw this book review, I was like, sure, I'll try it out once. And when I read it, I liked it a lot because it's like they've explained Indian mythology in a more modern manner so that like little kids like us will understand it easily.
Yeah, so I think that it was really popular amongst kids kids is because it used a lot of humor also. Like I remember one scene where Shiva said no, nahi, nako. So like that really got me laughing. And there were also like many other scenes like I I saw the bed stop. I want to experience it. Get out. So those dialogues were really funny and they got me laughing and interested in the book.
So I guess the surmise here is that young readers have appreciated the tonality, the humor in it, the simplicity in language, and the use of logic and science to explain a mythology, perhaps not the way our parents have explained it to us. Yeah, because usually mythological stories, when they're narrated, there's an element of magical grandeur in the way it's narrated, like, how Rama killed Ravana, about how he used a certain astra, or sometimes there's a lot of devotion built into it. So you don't often hear logic and science when you're listening to mythological stories. The stories in this book are based on an imaginary kingdom called Meluha, and this place has its own set of rules and laws by which all its citizens are expected to abide by. Not very dissimilar to how the constitution of each country expects its citizens to abide by. When y'all were reading about the rules in Meluha, did you find any rule that you thought was ridiculous, or you're wondering why would a rule like that have ever existed and it should not have? Or did you find any rule so fascinating that you think it should be brought into modern day society?
So basically, I remember, I think Vikarma. They were called the carriers of bad faith. So I thought this rule was kind of unnecessary, because the princess Sati, right? She was also Vikarma, and why? Just because people thought that in their last life they had done something bad, and then why did they get punished in this life? But in the end, I think Shiva bans the law, so I really like that part.
He thought the laws of Meluha were itself laws and systematical laws. They had a system, but some of it did not really apply practically, like the thoughts of Vikal, and did not have any evidence. The system was good, but some of it did not apply practically.
So, neither one of you liked the Vikarma law as explained in the book. For any of our listeners who may not have read the book, so very simply, the word Vikarma is a special word that is used in the book, which means it refers to a person who has suffered bad luck or an illness or any kind of a problem in this life because they did something wrong in their past life. So, such carriers of bad luck are called Vikarma. For example, if you're born with a limp, then the Meluhans thought that her limp was a punishment for a past mistake. And they were often asked to live separately, and they had different sets of rules to live by. Now, in the book, Shiva thinks that this is very unfair. Like, why would you punish someone for things they don't even remember doing? So, is there any law that the Meluhans used that you think we don't have today and ideally should have today?
I don't think so, because I think that all the necessary laws that we need we already have them, and all the laws, like we don't need the Vikarma laws and stuff. I think those are just stupid, and it's a good thing that we don't have them.
So all of you think we already live in a near perfect world? Is there anybody here who would rather live in Meluha than in today's world?
I would like to live in Meluha because Meluha is a very fascinating part of the Amish verse. It would be much like living in ancient India. So I think I would appreciate that thought because they are very similar to the original laws that were placed in ancient India.
So the idea of getting onto a time machine and traveling back to ancient India when Manusmriti's laws were more prevalent. So I think that is the idea that you find quite fascinating.
Actually, to be honest, I would like to live in Meluha, and it's not necessary because they were a better civilization, but maybe because our civilization has been taking a long step. Like in Meluha, of course, we use science, but when we use science, I've read a few more trilogies. They have shown how people can do telepathy and read minds, but these days are machines to do so, and they don't require machines, so they are training themselves to do it. My point is, if you are relying on technology so much in today's world, then technology will just dominate you, and you don't really have anything to do in the future. I just believe that if technology takes over us, they still may be in our control to an extent at which they can't destroy the world, maybe. But then, are we really doing anything in this life? We are not. We are just existing. And in Meluha, people actually attempted to live if they could not. They had a law, they had a system, but they attempted to live. So, and technology and machines did not necessarily corrupt them, but they trained themselves to be act like that. So, I'd prefer living in Meluha.
That there, Agastya, is a very interesting tagline. In modern day, we exist. In ancient Meluha, they lived. Wise words from an 11-year-old. It's Prakriti, I think you were trying to say something.
Yeah, ma'am, it just struck to me that there's this law between the Surya Vanshis that nobody should live in poverty. I would like to have that law over here because many people are living in poverty right now. No.
That is a very interesting observation, Prakriti. I don't think anywhere in the world people have embedded this into their constitution that there is a right to a minimum level of income. We have laws which say that everybody should be educated, but we don't have any law which says that everybody should have enough money to meet their basic needs. Yeah, that would make for a great inclusion in our constitution, although I don't know how we'll make it happen. Prakriti, I've got a question for you because I know that you are also a great fan of the Percy Jackson book series. For our listeners who may not be familiar with the Percy Jackson book series, it is a series of books written by Rick Riordan, and his first set of 5 books is based on the Greek mythology. Now, the Immortals of Meluha is based on the Hindu mythology with Shiva as the central figure. So, Prakriti, did you think the Percy Jackson book series was in any way similar to Immortals of Meluha, or do you think they were completely different?
Completely different. I mean, like in Percy Jackson, it's mainly about fighting monsters and saving the world. But in this book, it's like like they're like literally focusing on how do you say it like good over evil, and then mainly they're like focusing on protecting people from the nagas. It's something like that.
Yes, that is an interesting distinction that the Percy Jackson is all about fighting a villain whom we all recognize as a monster, whereas in the Immortals of Meluha, very often the villain or the evil that the protagonist is trying to fight against could be unfair practices in society. Why do you think Amish Tripathi created Shiva as a normal human with flaws and strengths just like you and I, as against creating this as a character who's God's incarnation on earth, who is near perfect.
I don't really think that at the start of the universe there's always a chosen one, and that practically you had to apply some work or some effort to get to that. And being a human, you can express your emotions through doing so. And being a human, you're also like a very humble background. It's not that you're a god or something. You're not at a highest status. I think it explains how a person from a humble background just rises up to become a god.
I think Amish Tripathi made Shiva a human because I think it also made the book pretty interesting. It's more like understanding, like reading about a human rather instead of a god is, I think it's more easier.
I think he did that to make the protagonist of the story relatable to the people, to give the story a new outlook.
So, what we're saying is that readers find it much more engaging to read about a person who's been stripped of all godlike superpowers, who has powers just like any normal human, like any of us, and that person is able to rise to a godlike status. There are critics who say that it's not okay to take stories based on religious mythologies and give them a modern spin, a very different perspective. You may be hurting some people's religious sentiments. Do you agree with this criticism?
Not according to me, because, like, firstly, many people have different religious beliefs. I don't think anybody knows what really happened. So, like, we should, like, let our imagination soar. Like, it's fun not just like reading all of this stuff.
Everyone has their own beliefs, as Prakriti said, because no one actually knows what happened in like 1,000 years ago in the BCE. No one does. So I think that I completely disagree with that.
I think religion originated to give us some hope and some thought behind that there is something that regulates the universe. But if you just keep it like that, you won't get your answer. And then other conflicts that may occur, such as if some natural disaster happens, you'll put it upon that deity, and then you'll start questioning your original belief. But you're not necessarily twisting it. You're putting it in a modern way. As an author, he would want to put it in a simple language for people to understand. But firstly, you're not twisting the story. You're sharing your perspective that may be more logical. So I disagree to not change anything.
I think I don't agree with that is alright. Like, it may be a little bit offensive to portray characters like that. The only offensive part of this whole book, I think, might be that they show him using a chillum.
I hear you. But were you comfortable with the idea of humanizing Shiva and maybe changing a few things in the story?
Yes, that's, I think, a very creative outlook, perspective to be told.
That sounds overall like a thumbs up for people to take stories and rewrite them and add their own perspectives. Young readers are certainly up for listening to new versions of the same stories. Thank you so much, Prakriti, Agastya, Shambhavi, and Smyan, for joining me today. I hope our listeners got a flavor of the book and what young readers think about it. I will see you all next week in our next episode, which is a summer special, a quiz based on countries and interesting trivia related to spaces. If you're a young listener aged 8 to 14 and would like to join me on this show, you can write to me via email at hello@wsnt.in. I'm leaving these details in the show notes below. I'll see you next week. Bye bye.